Hey everybody, I just checking in. I thought I would do a reply for James Dashnier's contest, which I believe ends tomorrow, Monday. This is Sunday, so I think still have a day left to go. If anybody else sees this and wants to make a response, you still got about 24 hours, I guess. So James wanted to name your favorite female fronted band, or I suppose maybe a band with female members in it. So something like the Talking Heads or something would do, I guess. Um, he had also said, I think he said heavy metal female fronted bands, but he also said you could do any era. So you could do the 60s or the 70s or 80s or whatever. So I don't think it has to be specifically heavy metal related. And hope not, because I don't have anything like that. So by band, I took it that I saw Brandon, Mr. Hall of Fame, kind of said the same thing in his response, that he was talking about a band as opposed to an individual. So someone like Franklin, Nina Simone, Lydia Lovelace, who I keep harping about, someone like that's more of a single person with a band behind them. But so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of bands with women in them that I love. So it's kind of hard to narrow down to one. I thought. Blondie, obviously Joan Jett and the Blackhearts came to mind. I like the Go-Go's. I like some Bangles stuff. Thought about Chrissy Hine and the Pretenders, who had a couple of really great albums, and then half the band died, and they were never really as good after that. And I thought, but one of my main loves, I really love the girl group sound of the early '60s. There, got quite a bit of stuff like that. The Ronettes, the Crystals, the Dixie Cups, all of those bands. So thought I'd go in that direction. And in fact, my favorite female-fronted band, well, it's all female, so I guess it's is favorite female-fronted band have to be the Shangri-Las. Just absolutely love this band, and they didn't make a whole lot of records. They made, I think they made 3 albums proper, and 2 of them have some overflow on each, where they've got some of the same songs on 2 of the albums. I've got this. I've got a CD that's double CD that's got a lot of ton of their stuff. They just Mary Weiss, the sang lead on a lot of the stuff. Cute as a button for one thing. Always had kind of a little crush on her, but just love their songs, classic songs, and kind of later on, they were early '60s, but later on in the later '60s, you had bands like Beatles and the Kinks and the Who getting into sort of concept albums and rock operas and stuff like that. I always kind of thought that the Shangri-La's songs, or many of their songs, are kind of rock operas before there was such a term, because they, in 2 minutes 45 seconds, they tell a whole story. You could take several of their songs and make them into a play or a movie or a book. Really, just these condensed little teen mini drama symphonies to God. Love Mary's voice. She's not technically the best singer out there. I mean, someone like Nina Simone or Aretha Franklin, Chrissy Hind even, probably going to blow her away on a technical standpoint. But she's got the grit and the guts and the emotion. And for something that was supposed to be disposable teen pop, 50 years later, they're still playing this stuff on the radio, and it still resonates. And it's a hell of a lot better than 99% of anything on the radio that's current, in my opinion. So, I mean, you got Leader of the Pack. Obviously, everyone knows that. Give Them a Great Big Kiss was another big hit. Remember Walking in the Sand, they did, was a big hit. Uh, but the good thing about them is a lot of these early bands back in the late '50s, early '60s get their albums, and it's a couple of hits and some okay stuff and a lot of filler, just sort of random stuff. There's really no filler with the Shangri-Las. Again, they didn't make but 3 albums and some singles. There were a few singles, I think, that weren't on albums. But they're top-notch stuff, every bit. The singles, the hits, the album cuts are great. I've got that double CD that I play in my car pretty often, and it's got, I don't know, 30 songs or something like that. Not a bad song in the bunch. And there's a couple at the very end that are just these little public announcement things that they did on the radio back in the 60s that aren't really songs. But other than that, every song on there is just top notch. And some days, I mean, I rate these girls up there every bit as good as the Who or the Rolling Stones, you know, and I think they're great. And the other two girls, there's actually three, there were four of them. One of them was in the band, sort of appeared with them off and on sometimes. They rock, they've got attitude, they've got great songs. They're just incredible. And as much as I love Joan Jett, Blondie, and Chrissie Hynde, they sort of set the template for what those bands became, and laid the foundation and did it even better than those later bands managed. So just a great band. They were on Redbird Records, and this is not an original copy. This is a repress, but they were on the Redbird label. Shadow Morton produced, a legendary producer, produced most all their hits, or all their records actually. I always loved, that's one of my favorite record labels. This is a classic label. And so Redbird went out of business about 1966 or 67. Shangri-La's moved over to Mercury Records for a short time and did some singles that didn't chart, unfortunately, because they're really good. So it's a shame. And then kind of by 67, you know, their time was up, because they were that early 60s, 63, 64, 65, 60s sound. By the time 66 and 7 came along, rock was getting into psychedelic and harder rock and stuff, so they were kind of a little out of place. So they did have the good common sense to break up in 1968, which might be a shame in a way, but it makes them, along with the Beatles and the Jam, one of the very few bands that had the common sense to break up when they were still at the top of their game and not hang around, hello Rolling Stones, forever and release a lot of mediocre crap. And so I wish, because the Mercury singles are kind of hard to find, I wish that they would do a little box set on them and just everything that they released. I think there's even some stuff they recorded in the 60s that still hasn't been released, and there's some live stuff around and all, so that'd be a cool box set. But favorite female-fronted band is the Shangri-Las. A couple of these, I know Ganser, I believe her name is, she passed away in the early 70s. I believe the other one has since passed away. Mary is still alive. She did a solo album about 4 or 5 years ago that's pretty good. The Raining Sound, that's kind of a current-ish band. They played, backed her up there. But great stuff, the Shangri-Las, and I love that early 60s girl group sound overall, and they are the top of the mountain of that whole musical movement to me. So there you go, James. Hope you get a lot of entries. Hope everyone's doing well. We'll see you soon.